Greetings, family. Sista Shanice in the house. Welcome to our news desk. If you're a first-time visitor, welcome. Please do subscribe, like, and I'd so appreciate love if you were to also share the video. Today's news is going to focus on the Niger independence coup that exposes a vast uranium wealth gap and an expectation for fairer partnerships. The recent Niger independence coup has brought to light the stark disparity between the country's impoverished state and its significant contribution to the world's uranium supply, especially to France and the European Union. As General Abdurrahmani Tishani takes the helm of Niger's leadership, the international community is questioning how a nation in such dire economic conditions can be a leading uranium provider. The situation highlights long-standing exploitative practices, raising concerns over the need for fairer partnerships and sustainable development. Despite being one of the world's poorest nations, Niger supplied just over 4% of the world's uranium output in 2022, making it a crucial supplier for the EU's nuclear plants. According to the Euratom Supply Agency, in 2021, the EU utilities purchased 2,905 tons of uranium imports, heavily relied on Niger-produced uranium, accounting for more than 24% of the EU uranium imports, making Niger the EU's primary uranium source ahead of Kyrgyzstan. Here are some interesting statistics that expose the economic imbalance between the supplier, Niger, and the customer, France and the EU. Now, uranium represents around 70% of Niger's exports, but contributes only 5% to its national GDP. Now, this significant wealth gap highlights a serious issues of unequal benefits from the country's uranium resources. The GDP per capita of Niger is at a mere $590 in 2021, and this stands in stark contrast to France's 43.6 million per capita in the same year. According to its website, the EU has allocated 503 million euros from its budget to improve governance, education, and sustainable growth in Niger over the 3-year period from 2021 through to 2024, amounting to about 167 million per annum. However, in 2021, the GDP of Niger was 14.92 billion US compared to France with a GDP of 2.98 trillion US in the same year. So this unequitable benefit sharing and this unequal exploitative practice has basically left the Nigerians with little benefit from their own natural resources, dependent on aid, and with over 3/5 of the population living below the poverty line and their country suffering from radioactive contamination from multinational mining operations. Now, this environmental impact was actually confirmed in a report back in January 2010 when the Kamba Bazooka News published an article by Khadija Sharifi highlighting that Niger exports enough uranium to France to generate 50% of the latter's electricity supply. But in return, ordinary Nigerians reap little benefit from France's control of their country's uranium resources, with over 3/5 of the population in Niger living below the poverty line, and, of course, the reports of the radioactive contamination of the water, oil, and soil by the multinational mining. And you see, what they're suffering at the moment is a continuation of the colonial legacy of exploitation, the colonial legacy of environmental degradation, the impoverished aid-dependent subjects has left the people of Niger poor. The international reactions to the people fleeing their impoverishment to greener pastures in Europe have been met with disdain and life-threatening policies. So it's hardly surprising that there has been protests in Niger and that this has attracted international reactions. So following the coup, thousands of protesters in Niger took to the streets, demonstrating their support for the new leadership and expressing their frustration with former colonial ruler France. Some protesters were waving the Niger or the Russian flags, chanting their support for the coup liberators leader and shouting, "Long live Putin" and "Down with France." Some demonstrators attacked the French embassy, sending a clear message to the French authorities, who have been long criticized for their exploitative policies towards their former French colonies. The French and EU suspension of the security cooperation and financial aid to Niger after the coup, along with the United States warning of potential aid suspension, was just further complicated and exacerbated the situation. Then we have ECOWAS threatening to take forceful action against Niger within 1 week if their demands for release from detention and reinstatement of President Mohamed Bazoum is not met. This threat has been met with a show of regional unity from the liberation leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, as they all come together and call, including the Gambia, for ECOWAS to instead look into the underlying issues that are the cause of the coups in the first place. Take a listen to the leader of the Gambian Democrats Congress Party.
But I have a concern. Before setting up a unit or anti-coup d'etat unit in ECOWAS, isn't it time that the African head of states or the ECOWAS head of states look into the reason why there are coup d'etats? What are the root causes of coup d'etats? Let them put their house in order first before they set up an anti-coup d'etat unit. Let them put their house in order. And I believe their house is not in order. This unit is set up to defend them and to protect them only, nobody else.
That was the voice of the leader of the Gambia Democrats Congress. And I think most of us would agree with the sentiments expressed there in that video. Niger's response: in the face of these challenges, Niger is carefully navigating its response to the different parties involved. The nation's new leadership must demand fairer economic partnerships with the EU and France, advocate for a more equitable distribution of the benefits from its uranium exports. While Niger values its cooperation with Russia, it should also seek technological support that helps in developing its own industries and infrastructure, rather than just relying on an arms race or a proliferation of weapons. And so this is a call to all African leaders. All African leaders need to come together and support individual African countries, especially those that are being exploited by their former colonizers. So in the broader context of Africa's development, leaders must stand united in demanding fairer partnerships with international players. Africa needs to seek assistance that fosters sustainable development, that empowers local industries and supports technological advancement. It also needs to be supporting assistance that's going to create jobs and opportunities for their population, for their citizens, rather than just perpetuating an aid-dependent relationship. African leaders at the Russia Summit and other international platforms must articulate their vision for a self-reliant and prosperous Africa, free from colonial constraints. So, in conclusion, The Niger independence coup has brought to the forefront the vast uranium wealth gap and the need for fairer economic partnerships in Africa. The country's abundant natural resources should be harnessed for the benefit of its people, fostering economic growth and sustainable development. As African leaders express their aspirations for a better future, the international community must listen and must support their demands and pave the way for a more equitable and prosperous Africa. Let me know what your thoughts are about the unequal distribution of the uranium profits situation here. I'd love to hear your views and comments. Post it underneath the video, and I'll certainly do my best to respond to as many of the posts as possible. Thank you so much for watching the Sista Shanice Show News Desk. Sista Shanice, out of here for now. Bye for now.